Hi.
Hi. So what are you running from?
Running.
Well, this place looks, haunted.
I'm writing.
Oh, really? Me too. So what are you working on?
It's kind of a revenge story about werewolves. You written anything I've read, or?
I just wrote a book called, Venus.
You wrote Venus. You're a best-selling author.
I'm so sorry. This road is actually only for best-selling authors, so I might kick you out.
You're not so great. Huh.
Your power out! Power outage. I'm bored. Let's tell each other scary stories.
Okay, first off, welcome to Novelpro Junkie. After hearing like a lot of positive reviews on Scare Me, I was hoping that I'll get a chance to interview you. And so I just want to thank you for taking your time to do this.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So my first question is, what inspired you to write Scare Me?
Well, I was directing quite a bit of commercials and realized, despite how many meetings I was going on and my agents were sending me, go meet this executive who might hand you the golden ticket, that no one was going to give me a better shot than myself. None of those meetings were translating into, money or progress. So, I thought, I'm going to make this thing myself, no matter how much it costs, up to a very small amount, up to a very small point, but that I was going to do the thing myself, even if it meant I was, holding the boom and acting at the same time. I made the pact with my cinematographer, Brendan Banks, that we were just going to like cross off the bucket list item and make the thing. And luckily, as I kind of realized putting the thing together, knowing it was going to be a small budget, producers at Irony Point, Alex Bach and Dan Powell came aboard. I've known them for many years. And Last Rodeo Studios and some other generous, folks just kind of threw in because they believed in the idea. It wasn't too much of a risk for them. And we got here. I kind of can't believe it.
So how long did it take you to write the first draft of Scare Me?
Let's see. I started writing it in April of 2018, and I was done at the end of May 2018. So it was about a month, and I was constantly revising. That's just the name of the game with scripts. You're kind of never done. I was revising and revising and revising right up until through shooting. Once Aya Cash came aboard, we were changing some dialogue stuff, and then there's improv and editing, and there's a 12-page scene in there, the Venus story that gets cut down to about 60 seconds in the movie, and there's some improv that hit the cutting room floor, but the very, very, very first draft that I kind of barfed out was 3 days. Took 3 days writing at a coffee shop here in Echo Park called Woodcat, and I just kind of banged it out every morning, 4 hours in the morning or so, and yeah, it was fast.
So what is your favorite line from Scare Me?
My favorite line?
Mm-hmm.
I love giving, when Fred gives Fanny shit about, what is it with all this like white guys shit? Are you this like, one of these like white men will destroy the earth people? And she goes, what are you, an incel dude? I'm ordering you some za. And that was improv. I'd never heard the word incel before, but now we all know what it means. That was one of my most favorites. And I don't know, there's so many little moments that I had and did specifically, along with Chris too, but that's one that stuck out for me for sure, because I learned something and it made me laugh.
So what is your writing habit in general? Do you write in the daytime or at night?
I typically write in the daytime. It's changed. When I was like younger and single, I would write like all night. Like I'd do these like all-nighters, or I'd start writing at midnight, write till 4 or 5 in the morning, and then sleep, till noon or whatever. And then, when you start living with someone who's like, please, like, let's like spend a little time in the bedroom just talking or reading a book and not in front of a screen. And also just reading Stephen King's writing habits and you know, traditional writing habits that seem to bode a little better and better for your health, because you want to, you know, drink plenty of water and get plenty of sleep. Writing in the morning turned out to be my favorite thing to do. So typically I will, if I'm not preoccupied with other stuff, I'll try and write, like journal write, just kind of free write. Journaling, I think is great for everybody, but I'll just sort of journal. Here's what's going on in my life, and then I rotate between different projects. I've always got, you know, 3 to 5 random different things, whether I'm putting a pitch together or whatever. So I'll just sort of decide, where's my heart this morning? Do I want to work on this science fiction thing, or do I want to, you know, horror stuff, or this comedy thing, or whatever? And then kind of, you know, work backwards or forwards from there.
Which filmmaker or screenwriters do you admire growing up?
Oh man, growing up, well, God, it's so common to say, but you know, Steven Spielberg is the reason I think I love movies the way that I do. And I suppose I don't know the filmmakers who were behind like the movies that I watched again and again, short of Wes Craven. Wes Craven, I think, had a big impact on me, and John Carpenter. But yeah, but you know, it's I'm just as inspired today, especially in the genre space, you know, as I was, I think, when I was a kid, by folks like Natalie Erica James, who directed Relic, and Karin Kusama, who did The Invitation, and Ari Aster with Midsommar and Hereditary. I'm finding equal parts inspiration. But when I was a kid, I think Spielberg was the pinnacle for me.
Do you ever get writer's block while writing on Scare Me? If so, how did you like get back on track?
I didn't get writer's block, at least not too bad, because when I would get stuck, I think that's when I sort of started to realize I could, if it was going to be an anthology movie, that I could dust off old ideas and sort of like just shove it right at some point in Act 2 and be like, well, this story is going to be one of the swaths of time within the movie itself. So that kind of helped me barrel towards the end of the film, you know, the 80, 90 pages to get the thing done. There was a bit of dialogue, I can't remember, that Aya wanted to clear up or just make a little, she wanted to clarify, and I couldn't quite figure out how to solve it on the fly. So she and I got to sit down and kind of collaborate on, you know, fixing dialogue, which is very common for filmmakers, and why a lot of films have writers on set to just kind of quickly, you know, stitch something. If people get stuck, and time is money, and you need to kind of keep things moving. But on Scare Me specifically, I didn't really get stuck. I think in the edit, I got stuck trying to figure out how to cut time down, and it's still a fatty movie. But, you know, how are we going to cut, you know, if the first cuts at, you know, comes in at 2 hours, how are we going to get this thing down? How are we going to cut 30 minutes out of this thing? You know, okay. That's where my block came.
So could you give us like an interesting fact about your co-star, Aya Cash and Chris Redd?
Interesting facts about them. Well, Chris Redd, let's start with him. Chris is not only a wonderful actor and comedian, but he's also a producer. And so when he was exhausted, having come off a week on SNL, he jumped right into shooting our movie. We had 48 hours with him. And he was working on a pitch for a TV show that he was a creator on, and was totally buttoned up professional, learned his lines and everything else. But I think the most wonderful moment was when there's a musical number in the movie, and the only moment I think I got insecure was dancing next to him, because I started to think of all the SNL digital shorts he does every week, and he usually does the musicals. And I'm like, I saw myself like on TV with him, or I saw myself like at his echelon, and sort of like didn't trust that I was good enough, and like that I could like keep up the rhythm. And I choreographed the dance with my fiance. And so I kept getting caught up, missing the rhythm. And he was so thoughtful and so sensitive. And he just kept he basically coached me through like how to do this dance. And I'll never forget that. Aya Cash, I mean, an interesting fact about her, she one of the first things she told me was, you know, I'm not one of these actors, because I ask everyone I work with if I'm directing, unless it's a commercial or something, but when it's like narrative stuff, I'll say, how do you like to be directed? And she said, I don't like 3 in a rows, like if you have one line or one response, she's like, I don't really love to just like give you 3 different responses, like reset, try it again, the same line, reset, do it again. She's like, I like a runway. She comes from theater. So it was really helpful for me as a director and as a scene partner to self-direct, be directing her. And then, when she needed us to, okay, let's go back a page. So like, let her have a runway up to the line so that she could kind of get there, and be in it emotionally. But I also love that she doesn't take this job, she doesn't think of it gravely. Like, she likes to have fun. She likes to play. She's like, you're never going to see me in a corner, like trying to, get to some dark place. Like I'm like having fun and jumping around and, making lewd comments. And she's super fun.
Okay. So what do you love about directing in general?
I love the control of it. I love commandeering, and I love problem solving. And, as a kid who was shy and a kid who didn't have very many friends and a kid who wasn't very social, but wanted all that stuff and wanted to have things within his control. I'm sure there's some psychological cathartic thing to directing that's like scratching the itch of, the backbone that I wanted and the courage and the guts that I wanted to have as a kid. And also too, like when I don't see something that I like, especially if it's a negative thing, whether it's something that doesn't look safe or, an acting problem, someone is kind of upset. I like to, kind of get in there and foster and guide and, and sympathize and empathize and mother, and protect and create a comfortable environment. That's really important to me. And that's what I love. When you're an actor and that's out of your control, all you can really do is commiserate, or you can sort of, you can control it up to a point, and then it's, you're part of the herd,
So anyway, obviously the werewolf hears all of this because, he's half dog or whatever. So he starts lurking up the stairs.
He's lumbering up the stairs?
Yeah, he starts lumbering up the stairs, like...
Show me that lumber. Ooh, breathe like a werewolf. Breathe. That's fucking scary.
See?
So my next question is, what was your hobby as a kid and what's your hobby right now?
My hobby as a kid was writing comic books. Like I would write and draw comic books just freehand with my friend Vidal, Galaxy Defenders, or Guardians of the Galaxy, I should say. No, wait, was it Guardians of the Galaxy? No, it was Galaxy Defenders. Guardians of the Galaxy. If I invented Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, my gosh, I would be the coolest creator ever. Star Devil, basically your Daredevil ripoff. So a lot of comic books, writing and drawing with my friend. We had AR Comics. I haven't thought about that in forever. His last name was Alexander. My name is Ruben. So we had AR Comics, big business as a kid. And one of my favorite hobbies now is there's a park by my house. So I love to pop in a podcast, typically one that's educating of some kind. Like I'm in love with the process, or Just Shoot It is a great podcast for filmmakers, or Fresh Air. I like to listen to interviews, and if I could learn something, especially in the industry, or Postmortem podcast with Mick Garris, like an interview with a horror icon or someone who's kind of been in this space for a while. Listen to one of those interviews and walk around the park. It's something I love to do.
So if you could direct or write a film adaptation of any novel or novella or short story, besides mine, of course, which one would you like to do?
Oh, that's a great question. There's an author named Nathan Ballingrud who is phenomenal, a terrific writer. And he wrote a book called North American Lake Monsters. It's actually a show. The show based on the book is called Monsterland. It's on Hulu right now. And there's a story in there called Wild Acre that's actually a werewolf story that is out of control, phenomenal. I mean, it's one of the best things I've ever read. And I think in tie with that is a story called Sun Bleached about a vampire living under a house that was damaged after Katrina. And those two stories are so irreverent and wild and frightening. I would love to play in that space. But if we want to get really, really weird and wild, this is not a novel, but there is a children's book. And I don't think there's any way they are going to relinquish the rights. But Miss Nelson is Missing is a children's book that I read as a kid that I loved. And I think it would be such a wonderful vehicle for like Kate McKinnon. It's about a teacher who gets mistreated by her class. She calls out sick, or just actually, no, she turns up missing, sort of fakes her own death basically, and then turns herself into this sort of witch-like character, you know, in disguise. She pulls an evil Mrs. Doubtfire and teaches the class a lesson. And I would love to do that. You know, it's kind of a maybe darker kid story.
You worked on the Late Late Show with James Corden and the TruTV with Adam Ruins Everything. Could you tell us like your experience working in those shows?
James Corden, I was hired to do one sketch. I'd never been a segment director before, and I got there on Monday, and I luckily had just seen Quiet Place, which has just come out at the time. And so I was really nervous to do my first job for CBS, like on a TV show of that scale. And I'm like prepping, I'm all ready for like Thursday. Shaquille O'Neal's going to come in, and Victoria Beckham, who is also in it too. So I was like prepping for this one day later in the week, and I was going to have a full week of prep. And the first day I come in, the producer, James Longman, comes up to me, who's wonderful. And he plops a script on my desk and says, "You're directing a Quiet Place parody tomorrow." I was like, holy moly. But luckily I'd worked at CollegeHumor. I'm pretty fast on my feet. And I was like, okay, no problem. We had 45 minutes to shoot the Quiet Place parody because James had a show to prep for. So it was intense. And if you don't know your shit, pardon my French, James is intense. So the Quiet Place one was like really fast and intense, but the Sharknado one was like a little more easy. I felt like I had the whole day to do it. And it was, you know, Victoria Beckham was wonderful. Shaquille O'Neal gave me the finger and called me Spielberg. It was pretty awesome. And Adam Ruins Everything. I came up with Adam Conover at CollegeHumor, and working on that was a delight. It was a dream, you know, all buddies. Yeah, I can't think of anything other than like Adam is one of the most like intelligent, storied, trivia-filled human beings on the planet. It's like talking to him is like reading a good book, but as if recited by a comedian. And I'd do that show again in a heartbeat, but I think they're done with it.
So what is the scariest thing you've ever done for fun?
The scariest thing I've ever done for fun, I think I was in Kentucky or Wilmington, North Carolina. And there was a Halloween night where you could go to an abandoned asylum and go to the top floor with like a group. It was almost like a guided tour, but it was like a real former asylum. And they turn all the lights out and they say that guaranteed you'll see a shadow move at the end of, you know, whatever hallway. And that was pretty scary. I don't remember if I saw much of anything. Like, you know, the tour guide probably was like, you know, trying to scare us all. But going up there, even with a full group, and they're just kind of like having your flashlight, you know, moving around different rooms, different hospital rooms. Ooh, that was spooky for sure.
Okay, so this is my last question. Could you tell us one surprising fact about yourself?
That's a really good question. I want to be like, I love cats. I'm a cat man. I'm really excited about one day. I don't know how interesting this is, but as much as I spend time in front of my phone, I'm so interested in one day owning property back in the Hudson Valley, back where I shot these two movies and where I grew up, and throwing my phone into a pond and never using my phone again. I'm really, really excited to get a landline, maybe a computer that's not a brand new computer, and just have like my farm with my little pond and throw the phone in the pond. Maybe fish the phone out because, you know, you don't want to pollute the pond or whatever. but I'm looking forward to the day when I can throw my phone in a body of water.
Have cheese, have veggie, right?
You seem like a fella who might be interested in some scary stories.
And you seem correct.
Hit me, Scare Master.
So, there's this little boy. You hear something.
Gasp.
This is the part in the story where the creepy strings kick in. Everything goes into slow motion.
Jesus Christ, dude.
It's a good story, right?
It's just been done like, I don't know, 600 or 700 times.
Just because you're the best-selling author doesn't mean you get to school me on story.
Actually, yes, it does.
Look at you! You are emasculated!
I'm going to get you.
Run, Jason!
No witnesses! Do one about dead babies. Like an army of them? You know, they got like little baby hands. They just like, we don't want bottles, we want blood, you know?
Fred, what are you doing with that poker? Is this part of the story?